investigations. I'm your host, Steven, and joining me once again on the channel is Mr. David Pease, all the way
Hello,
from
everyone.
Seattle, Washington.
Thank you for inviting me. Very excited to help with this tutorial, get some new players in the game.
That's right. Yeah, this is not going to be a typical gameplay video. No, in fact, we're actually going to be doing a tutorial walkthrough of the X-Files Collectible card game, the basic version.
I've seen other videos that compare this game to games like Clue or Guess Who, and that's essentially what we're trying to do through a process of elimination, through asking questions throughout the game. You try to figure out which X-file your opponent has in secret. What we're going to do now is play the basic game. A lot of the extraneous things have been removed. We've got just the basics here.
That is an excellent point, David, and that's going to be especially noticeable when we're looking at certain cards, particularly the agent cards and the adversary cards. In those cases, there's going to be a large portion of the text on those respective cards that we're not even going to be applying to this particular game. Game effects, health and combat values, and certain skills we're going to be ignoring for the purposes of this basic game. The first thing you're going to need to do is remove all cards marked with an X. Those cards indicate that this card is applicable for advanced gameplay only and is ineffective in a basic game.
As we mentioned, this is a game of a process of elimination and having your opponent try and guess your X-file card. You shouldn't put too much thought into choosing your X-file. There's a lot to choose from. You can just select one at random, or if you want, you can pick one from your favorite episode, or one that maybe matches the theme of your deck, although I do not recommend that. If someone guesses or figures out the theme of your deck, it may reveal your X-file earlier than you want. I suggest doing it at random.
And I'm just going to point out that I have a process for selecting my X-files in these recorded videos that I have not yet revealed to you or anyone else in our creative team. I'm going to leave that to you guys to figure out what my process for selecting is. At this point, we've only done a couple of episodes, so it's probably not obvious yet. So after you've chosen your X-file, the next thing you want to do is to select your team of agents. Now, in basic gameplay, the rules state that you need to select a team consisting of 4 agents, no more, no less. Whereas in advanced gameplay, you are able to select agents based on an overall cost value, which would allow you to maybe potentially pick up to 5. I've even seen one team composed of 6 agents. But for the purposes of basic gameplay, we're just going to be selecting a team of 4 agents. They can be any 4 agents, but you can't have 2 Mulders, you can't have 2 Scullys. But between you and your opponent, if I choose to have Agent Mulder on my team, David may also choose to have Agent Mulder on his team.
There's a little more to selecting your agents than just grabbing 4 at random. Something you want to keep in mind are the skills that are on the right side of the card. You want to select skills that complement each other, like skills, agents that have the same skills. You'll eventually be adding those together in order to see if you successfully investigate your site. So with that having been said, I chose for this particular demonstration Agent Bill Patterson, Agent Danny Pendrell, Agent Fox Mulder, of course, and Inspector Phoebe Green. Now I chose these because they have similar skills that will add together. For example, Agent Patterson has criminal investigation, as does Danny Pendrell, Fox Mulder, and Phoebe Green. Now this will come in handy in case if I move my team to the field and an adversary takes one of my agents and puts them in the hospital, I'll still have enough skill points to successfully investigate the site. The playing field is divided into 3 distinct sections for the basic game. The bureau, the field here in the middle, and the hospital here on my right side. These are important because your agents will move between each of these 3 sections during the course of the game. The bureau is kind of your safe place, and that's where your agents will normally begin. The field is where they will act as a team, combining their skills and being assigned to a site in order to use those skills to successfully investigate the site and earn your right to ask your question. Once in the hospital, they cannot contribute their skills and are not able to move until they are healed. And then we also keep these first aid tokens here to signify damage.
Excellent summarization, David. I wanted to point out that for the purposes of the damage tokens that you'll be using in the course of the game, you can use a variety of things. The X-Files Collectible Card Game Manual suggests using pennies or beads or any random tokens you might have around the house. Or if you're extra like we are, you can create custom tokens that you can use to enhance your gameplay. And I also wanted to mention that over here in your bureau area is where your bureau deck is going to be held. In addition to that, you'll have your discard pile right next to it where you'll be placing cards that have been played. The last component of the game that you're going to need to have available is the X-Files checklist or notebook. This will allow you to track which characteristics of your opponent's X-File you have identified and which characteristics you have yet to identify. So the next thing you're going to want to do before beginning the game is shuffle your bureau deck and then place it in the bureau section of the table, at which point you'll be dealing out 7 cards to yourself and your opponent will deal out 7 cards to his or herself.
Now that you've defined your sections of the play field, chosen your agents, and shuffled your deck, and drawn your hand, it's time to decide who goes first. You can do this in any number of ways, flipping a coin, rock, paper, scissors, or in our case, Stephen has graciously handed that to me.
So just a quick recap. Before beginning your game, you're going to first remove all cards marked with an X in the upper left-hand corner. Then you're going to select your X-File and place it on the board. Mine is here, and David, I see yours is located just above your hospital area. That's a good placement. The next step is you're going to select a team of 4 agents. After that, you're going to divide your playing area into the 3 areas that David discussed: the bureau, the hospital, and the field. And place a number of tokens in the hospital because more than likely, you're going to be using them in the course of the game. The next thing you're going to do is shuffle your deck and deal out 7. And then for the last step, you're going to decide which of your players will begin as the investigating player and which will begin as the conspiracy player. So without further ado, let's get started. I will be taking on the role of the conspiracy player, in which I will be attempting to thwart David's investigation and hinder his agents from successfully investigating the site, to prevent him from asking a question about my X-File. And those roles will switch per each round in the game. David will be going first, and as I stated earlier, we're going to be drawing 7 cards. So as the investigating agent, David is going to only be permitted to play cards that have a resource shield in the lower right-hand corner of the card. As the conspiracy player, I'll only be allowed to play cards during this round that have a red hand in the lower right-hand corner. We'll begin the game with the briefing phase. In the briefing phase, each of us will be drawing up to 10 cards. So because we currently have 7 cards in our hand, we'll each be drawing 3.
Now that you have your 10 cards, you start the healing phase. Now, in the very first turn of the game, this won't mean anything. During later parts of the game, you'll see as agents are wounded and moved to the hospital, you'll use this phase to remove a token from each agent. Skipping that, we move to a requisition phase. There are a subset of the cards that are available called equipment. This requisition phase is where you would apply those or attach those equipment to any number of your agents.
Do you have any that you're going to requisition to your agents?
I do not have any equipment in my starting hand, so I'll move on to the next. Next is the deployment phase. This is where the sections of the table come into play. Your agents will start in the bureau. From there, you can move them to the field, where they can be played against sites for skill checks. Agents that are damaged during combat will move to the hospital. If you already have agents in the hospital and they are fully healed, you can move them back to the field or the bureau. In this case, this is the first round. All of my agents are in the bureau. I am going to move them all to the field. Now that my agents have been deployed to the field and are available to play against the site, we move to case assignment phase. This is where I put a site out on the field, and my agents will be comparing their skills versus what the prerequisite is on the site card. Now, in my hand, I got Icy Cape, Alaska. The prerequisite is evidence collection 4, and the question I can ask is a result question. Now that my site has been put out on the field, we move to the investigation phase. Now in this case, I'm going to bring all of my agents to investigate this site. I'll move them up so that they're right next to the site to indicate that they are all assigned to this case. You don't always have to assign every agent to a site. If they are back here in the back of the field, they won't be attacked by adversaries, but they also cannot contribute their skills to the prerequisite. Now, this is what we were talking about earlier with matching skills and making sure they all complement each other on your agents. We talked about the prerequisite of evidence collection of 4 or more. In order to investigate the site, I will add up all of the evidence collection values that are on each agent that's assigned to the site. Now, in this case, Agent Bill Patterson has 3, Agent Mulder has 2, Agent Danny Pendrell has 3, and Inspector Phoebe Green has 2. I add those up, 3, 5, 5, another 3 is 8, and 2 makes 10. Very easily handling the prerequisite of 4 or more.
Okay, so now that David has conducted his site skill check, from this point, we'll be going back and forth in which I'll be playing cards that attempt to hinder his investigation, and he will be attempting to counter the cards that I play with cards of his own. Now, at this point, we can only play up to 3 cards during the investigation phase, not including the site card. So, now this is the first time I'm actually looking at what cards I have in my hand. I haven't been doing that up to this point.
Me too.
So now, I will be playing an adversary card. And that adversary is John Barnett links you to Mulder.
Back off! Don't even think about it! Just let her go. Go ahead and shoot! Go ahead, man! Shoot, Mulder! What are you afraid of, huh? What, against regulations? Huh? No, man, you need me alive, don't you? Because I'm the only one who knows what the research is, huh?
John Barnett links you to Mulder has an activator of conspiracy and agent. Those activators must be met in order for me to be able to play this card. The first activator, being conspiracy, refers to the player playing the card being the conspiracy player, of which I am at this point in the game. The second activator, agent, indicates that at least one agent on the opposing team must be present in the field, of which there are currently 4 on David's field. So John Barnett links you to Mulder can be played at this point. I also want to point out the keywords on the left side of the card, for which David will attempt to counter that adversary, potentially with cards that can affect this adversary based on what keywords it possesses. John Barnett links you to Mulder has 3 keywords: adversary, government, and creature. So John Barnett links you to Mulder is the first of 3 cards that I'm allowed to play. So at this point, David must counter this adversary card that I've played, and he may do so by playing any particular cards that he has in his hand, or we will proceed to selecting one of his agents to assign damage if he's not able to negate this adversary. David, do you have any cards you'd like to play to counter this adversary?
I do not have anything to stop your adversary, so that initiates combat.
Correct, and for basic gameplay, combat is pretty abridged compared to the advanced version. For the purposes of basic, what we will be doing is selecting one agent on David's team to send to the hospital to receive 2 tokens of damage. And in this case, John Barnett is going to attack Agent Fox Mulder, so Agent Fox Mulder will be sent to the hospital, while his remaining agents remain on the field. And at that point, I will discard John Barnett links you to Mulder. So at this point in the investigation, David must reassess his evidence collection skill to determine if he still has enough evidence collection skill to investigate this site.
Even without Agent Mulder, I still have 3, and 2. Still 8 points, so looking good.
Excellent. So at that point, I have an option of playing up to 2 more cards to attempt to hinder David's investigation. And I'll be playing 1 more card, and that is the Conundrum, which says, play to negate 1 keyword evidence collection card. And you'll notice that David's site, Icy Cape, Alaska, does contain the keyword evidence collection. So therefore that card is negated and moved to the discard pile.
Shoot. In this case, I do not have a card that can thwart the Conundrum.
Now, in the classical sense, the Conundrum's a geek.
He eats live animals.
He eats anything. Live animals, dead animals, rocks, light bulbs, corkscrews, battery cables, cranberries.
Human flesh?
Only the Conundrum can answer that question. But he doesn't answer questions. He merely poses them. When an audience partakes in the Conundrum's human piranha act, they are left to ask themselves, why?
And so we have resolved all cards on the field, and at that point, because David no longer has a site that he may investigate, we will move to the final phase in the round, which is the debriefing phase. In the debriefing phase for the basic gameplay, you may discard up to 3 cards if you so choose. I still have 8 cards in my hand after this round, and I have opted to keep all of the cards.
Entering the debriefing phase, I only have 9 cards in my hand, and I like them all, so I'm going to keep them, no discard. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. So at this point, we will each draw up to 10 cards. As I stated in the debriefing phase, I have 8 cards, so I'll be drawing 2.
And I have 9 cards, so I'll be drawing 1.
We will then move to the healing phase. As with David's first turn, none of his agents are in the hospital and therefore do not require healing, and that is the same case here. So I'll be assigning 3 equipment to my agents in the requisition phase. The first one, a gas chromatograph, which agents equipped with a gas chromatograph have access to the field office crime lab. This card adds 1 to the agent's sciences skill, and I'll be equipping that card to 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬. The next card I'll be requisitioning is the Lockpick, which adds 2 to the agent's subterfuge rating. I'll be attaching that card to Agent Fox Mulder. The third equipment card that I'll be equipping is the 2-Lux video camera, which adds 2 to the team's subterfuge skill. This modifier applies even if the agent to whom this equipment card is attached is sent to the hospital. And I'll be also attaching that one to Agent Mulder. We'll then proceed to the deployment phase, in which I will be sending all agents except Assistant Director Skinner to the field. Before we move on to the next phase, I'm going to play 1 card, and that is not on the menu, and that will allow me to draw 2 cards from the top of my bureau deck and add them to my hand. So now, as with the previous round, we'll move to the investigating phase, in which I will lay down one site card to investigate. And for this first investigation, we'll be heading to Dudley, Arkansas, specifically the 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬 house, which has a prerequisite of either subterfuge or behavioral 5+. This is a multi-site as opposed to the mono site that David played in his previous round. So from this point, I may choose to investigate either prerequisite, meaning that I can choose which skill that I want to apply to the prerequisite in order to successfully investigate this site. In this case here, we'll be opting to apply our subterfuge skills to investigate this site. I have a choice of asking either an affiliation or a motive question. Now there's an added condition where if I ask if the motive is security, the site prerequisite is reduced from 5+ to 4+. So as I mentioned, the site prerequisite mandates that I must have a subterfuge skill value of 5+. And Agent Mulder has a subterfuge skill of 1. However, he was requisitioned 2 equipment cards in the previous requisition phase that will add a total of 4 to his existing subterfuge skill. So Mulder possesses a collective 5 subterfuge value. Agent 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬 has a subterfuge value of 4, and 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬 has no subterfuge skill. So between Agent Mulder and Agent 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬, I have a grand total of 9 subterfuge, which is a pretty safe number for this site. Take it away, David.
All right, I'm going to start with injured relative. Force one opposing agent, my choice, to go to the hospital immediately undamaged. And I'm going to direct that toward Fox Mulder and send him to the hospital.
What are the keywords on that card?
Bluff only.
Just bluff. Okay. And unfortunately, I do not have a card in my hand that will counter that bluff. So, as David mentioned, I will be moving Agent Fox Mulder over to the hospital. However, I will not be adding damage tokens as per the card's game effect.
And I'll discard my card.
So at this point, I do not possess enough subterfuge in order to successfully investigate that particular site. So at that point, I will be discarding this site, and we will move to the debriefing phase. Well played, David.
Doesn't 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬 still have 4?
Yes, 4, but it calls for 5.
Oh, that's right. It's a multi-site. Okay.
It is a multi-site. Yeah.
Back to the game.
And I didn't choose if you ask if the motive is security, then it's reduced to 4. I didn't state that going into it, so therefore I don't have that option of selecting it at that point. So darn it. It's too bad. You know what happened is I played not in the menu a little too late. Had I played it before the requisition phase, I would have been able to add the cell phone to Skinner, because that was one of the 2 cards that I drew in with Not on the Menu. So if I had played Not on the Menu sooner, I would have been able to equip that to Skinner, and he has subterfuge of 3, so I would have been able to still be in this. So darn. Oh well. So that's part of the game, you know. Gotta, be thinking strategically about when you're going to play your cards.
It just points out that you need to be very familiar with the cards in your deck, so you know exactly the right time to play them in order to maximize their effect. Yeah.
Indeed. So we'll move to the debriefing phase, in which I have 7 cards in my hand, and I'm opting to keep all of them.
All right. I have 9 cards, and I like where I'm at, so I'm going to keep all of them.
Excellent. Let's swing this back over to you, David. So you are now the investigating player, and I am the conspiracy player.
All right. Starting with the briefing phase, both players draw up to 10. So I will draw 1.
And I will be drawing 3.
Moving on to the healing phase. Now you may remember Fox Mulder was sent to the hospital as a result of combat, and he has 2 tokens on there. So I will use my healing phase to remove 1 token. He still has 1 token on there, so he cannot move. Moving on to the requisition phase. Now, unfortunately, I do not have any equipment cards, so we're going to skip that phase. And we move right to deployment. My 3 agents are going to stay here in the field. Agent Fox Mulder, like I said before, is in the hospital with injuries. He has to stay where he is. Moving on to case assignment. I have 1 site to play. And that is Broad Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This has a prerequisite of criminal investigation of 4 or more. Its keywords are site, mono, method, and criminal investigation. The question I can ask is a method question. Once again, I'm going to move all available agents to this site to investigate. Criminal investigation 4 or more. You may remember Bill Patterson has 3. Agent Pendrell has 2. And Phoebe Green has 3. For a total of 8.
Excellent. 8 seems like a pretty safe number there. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to leave you a bit puzzled because I'm going to be hitting your investigation with the Puzzles Within Puzzles bluff, which I will play to negate 1 keyword criminal investigation card. And this is the part where I insert wah, 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 wah.
Don't do that to me.
What's that?
Don't do that to me. It makes me feel dumb.
Sorry. I'll be doing that in my previous round too, because you knocked out my subterfuge investigation. So guess what? It's going to go both ways.
Unfortunately, my hand does not have a card that can negate that particular bluff. Looks like I'm going to miss out on this question as well. That negates my site. I'll move it to the discard, and my agents move back to the field.
And I am discarding Puzzles Within Puzzles, and we will move once again to the debriefing phase. I'm holding 9 cards, and I will keep all of them.
I'm holding 9, and I like them all, so I'm going to stay with what I have.
Excellent. So we'll pass it back over to me, and for my briefing phase, I'll be drawing 1 card.
I have 9, so I've got space for 1 more.
Okay, so for the healing phase, Agent Fox Mulder is in the hospital. However, he did not receive damage as a result of that previous round, so I have no tokens of damage that I will need to remove from him. So we'll proceed to the requisition phase, in which I will be requisitioning 1 piece of equipment, the cellular phone, to Assistant Director Walter Skinner. So the cellular phone, for those who are unaware, may allow Assistant Director Skinner to add his skills to a skill check that is occurring in another section of the table. The agent's skills is reduced by 1. So for instance, if Skinner is still in the bureau, of which he is at this point, he may allocate his skills using the cell phone, but with a reduced value of 1. And I also want to point out regarding equipment cards, in order to requisition an equipment card to a particular agent, the agent must be in the portion of the field that is dictated by the activator. In the case of the cell phone, it has an activator of bureau. So the cell phone can only be assigned to an agent in the bureau section of the table. So moving on to deployment, we'll be deploying our agents to the field for this upcoming case assignment. And I'll be sending Agent Mulder from the hospital back out to the field. Additionally, he'll be joining Chuck Burke and Agent Alex 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬 in the field. For case assignment, we'll be investigating 1 site, specifically Virgil and Canto's apartment in Cleveland, Ohio. This site is a mono site, so it contains the keywords affiliation and computer, and it has a prerequisite of computer 4+, for which Chuck Burke alone has a computer skill equal to that. And so, upon successful investigation of this site, I will be able to ask an affiliation question.
Here
Got
we
any
go.
adversaries for me yet?
I do. In fact, the Manitou stalks its prey. Going to be my card.
This is my worried face right now.
Freeze frame worried.
Yep. So the Manitou, if I'm not mistaken, has keywords adversary, occult, and creature. Am I correct?
That is correct.
So at this point, in order to continue with my investigation, I'm going to have to counter that adversary. Because unfortunately, I only have one agent who has the computer skills necessary to investigate this site, and that is Dr. Charles Burke. And if I am unable to counter that adversary, I know for a fact that David will be selecting to send Dr. Burke to the hospital, thereby thwarting my investigation. So I gotta play something. That, I will remedy the situation by playing X, which will negate any one keyword adversary card.
Can't beat that one.
You cannot. That is a worthwhile inclusion to any deck. My site investigation remains unhindered, and for that, I will be able to ask one affiliation question regarding David's X-File. So I'll refer to the checklist or notebook that we mentioned earlier, and I will be asking David, is your X-Files affiliation evolutionary?
It is.
It is.
An excellent guess.
This is not a good example of how these games normally go.
This is not how it
I usually
normally
have
goes.
to ask about 2, 3, 4 affiliation questions before I finally narrow it down. So it would seem that fortune is on my side, at least for the moment. So I have successfully narrowed down the possibilities of David's X-File to 9. And so at this point, in addition to the characteristic question that I just asked, I may choose to take a crack at identifying David's X-File by asking if he is one of the 9 remaining possibilities on my checklist. However, should I guess incorrectly, David will be awarded a penalty question in which he will be able to ask me either an affiliation question about my X-File, or he may take a crack at identifying my X-File. And because there are still 9 possibilities and I don't feel comfortable about my chances, I will refrain from taking a crack at identifying your X-File at this time. And we will move on to debriefing.
And there's actually one that I don't think is helping me, and that's abduction.
So let's pass this back over to David, and now he will be taking on the role of investigating player, and I will be the conspiracy player once more. And so we will begin by drawing up to 10 cards.
We've drawn up to 10 in our hands, so I'll move to healing. Now, Mulder is still in the hospital. 1 token left, so I will take advantage of the healing phase to remove that final token. He's back to full health. Moving to requisition. I do have equipment cards in my deck, but none in my hand right now, so I'll move on to the next phase, which is deployment. I'm going to deploy Mulder from the hospital back into the field, so my team is back up to full strength. And then case assignment. I'm going to play Striker's Cove in Blue Ridge Mountains. The prerequisite is evidence collection 4 or more. The question I would ask is an affiliation question.
Affiliation, you say?
Indeed. Do you have a card to play before I deploy my agents?
So how much evidence collection are you sitting on at this point?
I'll just start from the left and read them all. Evidence collection, Agent Bill Patterson is 3. Danny Pendrell is 3. Inspector Phoebe Green is 2. And Fox Mulder is 2.
All right. So you're signing them all, right?
I will assign all agents to this investigation.
Okay. Let's begin by playing a bluff card. Specifically, Section Chief Joseph McGrath. We will force one agent of my choice back to the Bureau immediately. The agent may not contribute to any skill checks this turn. And if I'm not mistaken, Phoebe Green possesses the most evidence collection, or does Agent Patterson?
Agent Patterson is 3. That's the most on the team.
Okay, let's send Agent Patterson back to the Bureau.
Anything
I
else?
will now play another bluff card. And you might be familiar with this from an earlier round. The injured relative, who will force one opposing agent of my choice to go to the hospital immediately, undamaged. Toss up, we'll just send Pendrell to the hospital.
Okay.
So now you are currently sitting on 4 evidence collection amongst your 2 remaining agents, is that correct?
You are correct.
Okay. And because I've already played 2 cards, I may only play 1 more card during this investigation phase. And for that final card, I will play the Dark Angel, which has an activator of affiliation site, of which David's site does contain the keyword affiliation and site.
Lord is with thee, blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Andrea, wait!
Unless David has a card to negate that adversary, Phoebe Green will be heading to the hospital and be served a cold dish of 2 damage tokens.
Well, I don't have one to stop the adversary, but I do have True Grit. True Grit. Play when an agent is forced to go to the hospital. He must still go to the hospital by the end of this turn, but may add their skills to 1 skill check before going. So I still have Phoebe here at the site only for the skill check, and then she'll be going to the hospital afterward. And that was your
Indeed you
3rd
do.
card.
Well
So
done.
I feel like I'm ready to do my site investigation. I have 4, which just barely squeaks by on that prerequisite. So I will be asking 1 affiliation question.
Well done. Have at it. Hit me.
Is your affiliation alien?
It is not.
Okay. Mark off all the alien affiliation off of my tableau there. True Grit has been used, so I'll discard that. The site was successfully investigated. I'll discard that. And I couldn't protect Phoebe from taking damage and going to the hospital, so she will now go there with 2 tokens of damage. And going to the debriefing phase, I have 8 cards, no discard.
I have 7 cards, and I will keep all of them as well. And we'll see if I can successfully investigate a site this round. I will be drawing up to 3. I will be drawing 3 cards.
I have 8, so I'll draw an additional 2.
Excellent. So as we go into the healing phase, you'll see I do not have any agents suffering from any damage, so we'll move past that to the requisition phase. I do not possess any equipment cards to hand out at this time, so we'll move on from requisition to deployment. We'll be keeping our agents deployed as is and move into case assignment, for which we will be heading over to the Midwest, specifically Lake 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬 in Sioux City, Iowa.
Oka what?
Boji. Boji.
Is that supposed to mean something to me?
You know anything about trout fishing? Or UFO hotspots?
Lake 𝐗-𝐽 has a prerequisite of Alien Investigation 4 and allows the player to ask a motive question should the site investigation prove successful.
And you said all 3 of those agents are there in the field?
All 3. And with their combined Alien Investigation skill, they have 8.
8. Curious what their sciences skills add up to?
Oh, you could only be asking that for one particular reason. Well, there's actually... No, it would be for one particular reason. Because this is basic after all. Thankfully, we do have enough sciences. I say we do have enough because I'm assuming you're asking if I have enough to make a sciences skill check of 4. 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬 has 1, but in addition to his 1, he also is equipped with the gas chromatograph. And Chuck Burke has a sciences skill of 2, and Mulder has a sciences skill of 1, for a total of 5.
Okay. All right. First,
before you play anything, I'm going to play one card of one of my 3, and that is the smoke screen, which I will play on a team in the Bureau. If the team makes a Bureaucracy 4 skill check, designate a team in the field. As long as no new members are added to the team, government adversaries may not attack that team. This card remains in effect until a new agent is added to the team.
all right. I'm going to play Henry Trondheim. Force the team investigating a site to discard 1 equipment card of your choice. I'm going to remove 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬's chromatograph.
Good choice. So that takes my collective sciences skill down from 5 to 4.
Well, not quite playing out like I had hoped, but I am playing the long game, so I'm going to stop there. I've got nothing else to stop.
Before I ask my question, I still do have the option of playing 2 more cards, and I will take a moment to do so. For my second card, I will play Warning from the Loa to force an opponent to reveal any adversary cards in his hand. If your opponent has 1 or more, discard 1 at random. Show me your adversaries, David.
I got no adversaries.
Alright. I have to be strategic about when I play that card. Alright, so for my final card, the investigating phase, I will be playing Alien Technology. Play after your team successfully investigates a site with alien investigation or bureaucracy skill as a prerequisite. Place this card in your bureau. Discard this card to negate 1 alien or government adversary. So because this site investigation has proven successful and it does contain the prerequisite alien investigation, I will be able to play that card. So now that I've played all 3 cards, I will now move on to the question. And I will be this time asking a motive question of David's X-File. So David, is, by any chance, your X-Files motive control?
It is not.
It's not. So with 7 possibilities still remaining for David's X-File, I will once again refrain from taking a crack at guessing the identity of his X-File. So David, let's head over to the debriefing phase, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
I played a healthy handful of cards in that round, so I will be ending this round with 6 cards in my hand.
No discards at this time.
Let's pass it back to you and see if you can catch up to me. I will be drawing 4 cards.
Okay. I have 9, so I'll just be drawing 1. We'll move on from there to healing. I do have Agent Phoebe Green, or Inspector Phoebe Green, here in the hospital with 2 tokens. The healing phase is here, so I'll remove 1. She still has 1 left. So she will have to stay in the hospital. Requisition, I do not have any equipment, so I'll skip that phase. And next is deployment. Now, Danny Pendrell was sent to the hospital but did not suffer any damage, so I'm going to deploy him back to the field. And just to strengthen up here, I'm going to deploy Agent Bill Patterson from the Bureau back to the field, so they're all available to investigate a site. With that having been said, we'll move on to case assignment, and the site card I'm playing is Tracking the Killer, a prerequisite of criminal investigation 4 or more, and I would ask a motive question.
If somebody really wanted to set us up, would they give us this little to go on? There's something bigger here, Scully. I'd be willing to bet there are more of these guys out there.
More victims?
Unless we get to them first. The deaths follow a pattern. New Jersey, New York, Scranton, and then an ad is placed here in Binghamton looking for men exactly like the others. The killer's moving in a northerly direction.
All right, well, without further ado, I will assign all 3 agents to this site. Do you have any cards you would like to play, sir?
So the first card I'll be playing is Taking Chances, which will allow me to search through my bureau deck and add any one adversary card to my hand. I'll be showing you that adversary momentarily, David.
Okay.
All right. Want to take a guess at which adversary I have pulled, David?
Just hit me like a Band-Aid, just rip it off.
All right. The Alien Bounty Hunter.
Where is he? I don't know.
Which, as I stated, does have an activator of Motive Sight, so therefore he is able to be played at this time. And David, he has the keywords Adversary, Alien, Creature, and Master.
Boy, unless I can play Unexplained Time Loss on myself, I've got nothing to stop him.
Alright, so at this point, the Alien Bounty Hunter is going to inflict damage to Agent Patterson. So therefore, Agent Patterson is out of play for this the remainder of this round.
I currently have 4, which is the minimum right now.
I am down to my final card that I may play for this round. And I will be playing Holtzman DSA, wherein I will be applying a -2 modifier to any one skill check involving one of the following skills: criminal investigation, evidence collection, or computer. And so we'll be applying -2 to your agent's criminal investigation skill check, which will leave you with only 2, and therefore insufficient to investigate that site.
Tell me where you got it.
Tell me what it is.
Keep playing games, Mulder. I'll haul your ass up in front of the D6. You can explain to them what you're doing obstructing justice.
You know,
And
have a
he's
little
just-
flash of insufficient funds, insufficient funds. So I have played my final card, and unless David has anything to stop that card, I'm afraid that destroys any attempt at successfully investigating this site.
He's not a resource card, is he?
He is not. He is a bluff with a
Oh,
keyword
bluff.
government.
Well, I had a card there, but unfortunately it's not going to make up for all 2. So
Nope.
I will not make it.
Oh.
All right, well, with that site discarded, We'll move to debriefing.
I will discard this classified case to bring my remaining hand down to 7. Well, here's hoping a sight card comes up. Otherwise, this will be a pretty quick round. I feel like I should discard another one, but I really do like the other cards in my hand, though.
I need some room in my hand here for some additional cards. And while all of these will play very well, it's going to kind of break my heart here.
Oh, you don't have a sight either?
I do not.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone is going to raise an eyebrow who watches this, who knows the game and knows the cards. They might not agree with these, but I'm going to go with Trust No One and Skinner Intervenes as my 2 discards.
I don't think anyone's going to give you a hard time about that.
That leaves me with 7.
Same doubt. Let's
All
pass
right.
it back to me, and each of us will be drawing 3 cards. And did fortune smile? No. For me, it did not. Oh, except... Actually, for while I did not pull a sight card, I did pull something that may just salvage this for me. Let me check and make sure I'm not misreading this. Well, for the sake of novelty, I'm definitely going to be playing this card. But let me see if there's anything else I'm going to do. Okay. Let us move to the healing phase. Again, I don't have any agents currently suffering from any wounds in the hospital, so we'll move past the healing phase to requisition phase. I do have 1 equipment card in my hand, and that is 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬. Everyone's favorite equipment card. And 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬 has an activator of field, which means he can only be requisitioned to an agent in the field section of the table. And so I will be attaching 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬 to Agent 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬. Now, 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬, for the benefit of our audience, is discarded in order to negate any one primordial or evolutionary adversary. Each player may only have 1 of this beloved card in their deck. Let's move on to deployment. I will be keeping the team deployed as is. And as I mentioned earlier, I did not draw a sight card, unfortunately, in the briefing phase. However, I did draw Hack into Government Files. I will play on a team to make a Computer 4 skill check. If successful, you may select any card in your collection and add it to your hand. The card need not be part of your bureau deck, nor may it exceed the limit of 2 cards per deck. So what I will do is I will search through my bureau deck and draw a sight card. Interesting card, is it not?
Indeed.
It came up just at the right point, too. So we have not seen that card in any of our previous games.
No,
But it
not
is,
until now.
It is an interesting... I don't have it in my other deck because I don't have the computer skills to make that skill check. Alright, so thankfully, due to the Hack into Government Files event card, I am able to retrieve a sight card from my bureau deck. And we'll proceed with our investigation to Arecibo, Puerto Rico. And that, David, is a multi-site which contains the keywords method, affiliation, alien investigation, and computer. And while my team doesn't quite have enough computer skill to make 5, therefore I'm choosing to investigate using the prerequisite skill of alien investigation, for which I have in spades.
No, even with 10 cards, I do not have anything that could thwart your investigation.
Alright, and so with that, I will be asking either an affiliation or a method question. And so I've ascertained that David's X-Files affiliation is evolutionary. I will be asking a method question this time. And so, Mr. Pease, is, by any chance, your X-Files method violence?
It is not.
It's not. So now, at this juncture, I have narrowed David's X-File down to 4 possibilities. And so I believe I will take a crack at identifying David's X-File. David, is by any chance your X-File Arthur Grable?
It is not.
It's not. Therefore, because I have incorrectly guessed the identity of David's X-File, he has thus been awarded a penalty question.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask an affiliation question.
Oh, no, you're not. Because I have some dirt on you, my friend.
Oh, you're blackmailing
me?
Blackmailing
you.
You can kill me now, but you'll never know the truth. And that's why I'll win. Don't worry. This will be our secret. We wouldn't want others to start rumors.
And blackmail, for the benefit of our audience, is played whenever you have just guessed incorrectly the identity of an X-File. Select a team in your bureau. If the team successfully completes a Bureaucracy 4 skill check, your opponent does not get to ask you a penalty question. And Skinner, who has been in the bureau this entire game, shuffling paper, does possess enough skill, bureaucracy skill, to make that skill check. So therefore, the blackmail card is a viable card, and I have utilized that to negate David's penalty question. Mm-hmm. I am sorry, Mr. Pease, to let you down. I know how much you desperately wanted to take a crack at identifying my X-File.
I should have known you wouldn't put yourself in that position without having something to help you out. I'm going to discard. Let me just take another quick count here. The Stupendous Yappy. Was looking forward to playing that just for fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm also going to discard Authorized Access Only.
Yeah, seeing as I'm swimming in subterfuge over here now, thanks to my 2 pieces of equipment, for which I neglected to use when it actually mattered.
I need room in my hand, so I'm also gonna let Detective Sharon Lazard go.
Okay.
That takes me down to 7. That should yield some results, I hope.
It should, theoretically.
It should. I'm gonna put quotes around it. It should help.
So let's move over to David's turn. He will now be taking on the role of investigating player once again, and we find ourselves in the briefing phase. But before, David, you decide to pick up any cards from your deck.
Because here comes more red tape.
Which play during the briefing phase to prevent your opponent from drawing any cards during the remainder of this turn.
That hurts.
Mm-hmm. So I'm afraid you're stuck with the cards you have in your hand. And while you're stewing on that, I will draw 4 cards to bring my hand back up to 10.
Okay, well, I'm going to have lots of extra room for the next time.
Indeed.
So since I can't draw any cards this turn, we'll skip my side of the briefing phase. We'll go right to healing. I do have some healing to do. Agent Phoebe Green, that's her last token, and Agent Patterson 2, so we'll take 1 away. He's still in the hospital with 1. Moving on, requisition, I have no equipment, so we'll move on from that one. Deployment, I am going to take Phoebe Green out of the hospital and have her move to the field with the rest of the agents there. And I have no site cards. And since I was prevented from drawing any more, unfortunately, I do not have anything I can play right now.
And for the benefit of new players coming into the game, it's wise to take an opportunity in a round like this in which you don't possess any site cards in your hand to deploy each of your agents to the Bureau for the purpose of possibly drawing equipment cards in a subsequent round that you can requisition to the agents in the Bureau, because the majority of equipment cards have an activator of Bureau.
So we'll skip case assignment and investigation, go right to debriefing. I already hurt myself enough. I have 7 cards, no discard.
And I have 10 cards, so I will be keeping all of them.
All right, then we'll pass back to you to start your briefing phase.
Excellent. And because, as I said, I have 10 cards in my hand, I will refrain from drawing any further cards.
Well, I have 7, so I'll draw my 3.
Excellent. So once again, I don't have anyone to heal, so we'll be moving right past the healing phase and into the requisition phase. Another glance at my hand shows that I do not have any equipment cards, and so I will not be requisitioning any equipment at this time. We'll move on to the deployment phase, in which I will be keeping my team deployed as is in order to keep the smoke screen card in play. For case assignment, our team of 3 will be heading over to Townsend, Wisconsin, where they've received reports of some UFO wreckage. Now, in order to find out more about this UFO wreckage, our team must meet the prerequisite of Alien Investigation 5+. And between Alex Krychek, Dr. Charles Burke, and Agent Fox Mulder, they have a combined total of 8 Alien Investigation, unless Mr. David Pease has any words he would like to say about that. And by words, I mean cards.
All right, well, unfortunately, I don't believe I have anything to stop you with that.
In that case, I'll be asking either a motive question or a result question. So, I have yet to ascertain either, so let's say we ask a result question this time, shall we? That way I'll kind of run the gamut as far as questions go. By any chance, is your X-Files result death?
It is not.
It is not. Seeing as I have narrowed David's X-File down to 1, I will therefore take another attempt to identify his X-File. David, is your X-File Dr. Banton and his shadow?
Yes, it is.
And that, my friends, is how you play the basic game that is the X-Files Collectible Card Game. It was just one of those things we didn't really outline. We were covering, questions, the question portion of site resolution.
What about it did we not get? I'm sorry, I missed.
Like, we didn't spell out that you're supposed to be asking questions that will draw a yes or no answer from your opponent.
Oh, yeah, we were a little casual with our answers.
We were, but hopefully that, kind of makes sense. It's like, I'm asking, is your X-Files result this? And you're saying no. So hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory. Now it says, regardless of how many cards you discard, you may draw back to 10 cards at the beginning of the next turn. So that is, as we had experienced a little later in the game, that proved to be a crucial point, because we each had, a substantial amount of cards at the end of that particular round, but we were lacking in sight cards. So discarding at the end of the debriefing phase is an important step.
I had just recently I just gotten Darkness Falls, which I couldn't play because you had Queequeg.
What's that?
Darkness Falls. I wouldn't be able to play because, I could play it, but Queequeg is there, and he's a primordial.
Oh yeah, because it's primordial?
He's primordial, so you would have immediately negated him. And I would have gotten Queequeg off the table at least, but I wondered if maybe I could. I have another card that would have taken away an equipment card, so I was kind of hoping that was going to come up, and unexplainable time loss. It was such a great card, but you had enough sciences. Again, I still had another couple of cards that would have forced agents either to the hospital or to the bureau, or would have made it so they couldn't contribute to a skill check. So I didn't quite want to give that up. I probably should have, but I just couldn't bear to do it. Assassinated, which is always a personal favorite of mine. Medical treatment.
Wait till you see that David May corner where we talk about Assassinated in great length.
Medical treatment, I got it too late. Where it would have just been a waste of a card.
You would have been healing him anyway.
I felt like I have a pretty good team for evidence collection, criminal investigation, and observation. So I was hoping that even if one or possibly even two agents went to the hospital, I'd still be able to kind of just squeak by on some of these things if I could defend myself. Those are the big ones.
Yeah, and I know when I was choosing my agent team like earlier this week for basic, I was like, well, there's a good chance he's going to be probably including unexplainable time loss. So I was like, this time, since I'm not so much concerned with having awesome game effects on my agents, I was like, well, let's just make sure I have at least enough sciences skill in order to scrape by should you play that card on me. So that was a conscious effort. That's why I chose Chuck Burke as opposed to, like, say, Albert Hosteen. Because Hosteen and Chuck Burke are pretty similar in their skills. They both have alien investigation. They both have occult investigation on them. So it was a question of, like, well, do I want the computer for, or do I want the occult for? But I need the sciences, just in the event of that unexplainable time loss. So I was like, you know what? That gave Chuck the edge. Although I particularly like Albert Hosteen's effect better than Burke's. It's like, yeah, see how bad my monotone is? It's literally putting you to sleep over there.
No, it's not the company. It's a big bowl of spaghetti right before bed at 1 a.m.
So that's what you treated yourself to after last night's broadcast. All right. Anyway.
So what was your X-File?
Oh, well, do you want to take a guess? I know you had one or two questions that you asked me, right? No, one?
Just one.
One.
Just
sure,
one.
Right? Just one. Yeah, yes, my affiliation was alien. And I did have to check because I was like, wait a second, this isn't an alien. It's not. So my X-File was Reverse Engineers, which was a government.
That would have been my next affiliation question too. Shoot.
Yeah. No, Skinner Intervenes has its place. It's just that I love
no
this
respect
cat.
at all. No respect.
I just let him stay up there. Let him stay. I mean, unless he's ripping up your cards.